Hi, I want to talk a little bit about reading and book reports and some things you can do, especially as a homeschooling parent. You have more time to give individual children that school teachers wish they had. So we'll talk about book reports, but also narration, it's called, and also another incentive that's really fun. And it also helps you to kind of partition book purchases if you're doing book purchases. So I know right now physical books are a bit difficult, but there's a lot of Kindle books and Project Gutenberg books also, as well as online ebooks that you can get through your library. But let's just talk a minute about book reports. So there's a book, I'm pretty sure it's called For the Children's Sake, I have to look it back up again, by Susan Schaefer Macaulay. She took the turn of the last century educator, Charlotte Mason, took a lot of her methods and then wrote about them, used them, put them into play, and her book just kind of updates it a little bit for our time. And so Charlotte Mason was like at the end of the Victorian era, actually towards the end of the century, but not the end of the Victorian era. But she believed very much like Thoreau and some of the others, but about Louisa May Alcott's dad. She believed a lot about the importance of children going out into nature and just a lot of things that kind of some things that Montessori tends to use and is built on. And so, rather than just didactic, trying to push knowledge into children, she felt like it was really important to make it interactive, a journey, a little bit of the Socratic method of reasoning using questions. And so one of the things that she taught was the importance, number one, of really good books, really good literature, and we can talk about that at another time, but I think that's enormous, and I feel like we need to get back to what that used to mean, as opposed to whatever the current events are and trying to plow all this drama into our children right now. What did it mean to have heroic books and really great books with great vocabulary and words that are often left out in a lot of the later half of that century, of the last century, and this century kids books. So, but she did a thing called narration, and so this is reading aloud to kids and then having them narrate back what that story was about. So you would read, a portion of the book, and with little kids it would be, a small portion of the book, and then stop and let them narrate back. And then as they get older, it can be longer portions. Read a chapter of one of the Chronicles of Narnia, for instance, and then have them narrate back. Although a whole chapter is still a bit much, because part of what you want to do with narration is you want the kids to really start noticing details in the stories. And so, it's like not just he went over, he fought the battle, they beat the bad guys, but his brother was a traitor, and how are they going to save his life, because now his life is in jeopardy, and just telling the story with more details, the shiny armor and the sword and Reepicheep the rat, and mouse. Oh my. So in narration, one of the things that you're doing is you're helping kids to then, when they're listening to the story, they're starting to notice more of the details. They're listening for those details that they can tell that story back. But it's also just ensuring that they get the comprehension. But it's more than that. It's not a test, were you paying attention? it's really, it deepens the story for them when they start telling it back. You use different parts of your brain when you tell a story back, as opposed to when you're listening, taking in information. So, so this is really not even what I was going to talk about. I was going to talk about book reports, but I was also going to touch on narration. But this is really a rich part, and one of the things that it does for kids is it helps them learn to be more factual, more detail-oriented, to notice details, and that also helps them with truthfulness as well, because suddenly it's, well, what was the detail of that story? No, it wasn't red armor, it was shiny silver armor, right? And so as kids learn to be more detailed and more accurate, then that makes them also more truthful, because they recognize the difference between a broad statement that's maybe not quite factually correct and something that's very accurate and truthful. So, so when kids are reading books on their own, though, you can do the same thing and have them narrate back, but it also can be really handy to have them do a very simple book report, depending on the age of the kid. So this is a very, very simple one, and it's based on something that we had used a long time ago, but I just whipped one up by hand. So this is basically saying, they can write down the title, the author, who the main characters were, where it took place, when did it take place, what happened, what they liked about it, what they didn't like, and then they can color these, cut them out, and then we had a door, the door to our garage, that was our tree to put our little book reports on. And so when the kids did a book report and they filled it out well enough, sometimes they had to go back and do it again, do a little bit more. But when they were done and we put it on the door, then they got a book buck. And the reason I came up with these was, number one, as a parent, you're like, you don't want to say, no, you can't buy books. Of course we want you to buy books. But then, how much is too much? What's the right amount for them to spend? And where's that money coming from? And so this was a way to say, okay, I will buy you books, or you can buy books. You have to earn the money first. So this is earning money that they could spend on books. And you can work that however you want, but these can be $1 or they can be 50 cents or whatever you want it to be. It's just one book buck, whatever values you say that has. So that was really handy for us, because then it quantified it and made it, instead of this huge unknown where we could just be buying books all day long, it made it manageable. So that's what a lot of my tips are about, is making homeschooling manageable. So there's some great lists out there of what Charlotte Mason and Susan Schaefer Macaulay refer to as living books. They're books that are pretty timeless, and they have rich language, and they really just come alive. They, inspire imagination in kids. So I will try to post some links in the comments. So let me know if you have any questions about this, or if you're curious, or just let me know what you'd like. Okay, thanks. Have a great day. Bye.